Good morning and welcome back to Rising, to one of our last shows of the year 2023. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday. Today I'm joined remotely, of course, by the lovely Jessica Burbank. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, Robbie. How was your Christmas?
Mine was just fine. How was yours?
Mine was great. There was a baby there, Robbie.
Babies make everything better. I am jealous. Actually, there was a baby announcement at the Christmas I attended, so that was pretty exciting too. Baby on the way. So I was excited to hear about that for some family members. But let's get to the show. Take it away, Jessica.
We love babies, but serious matters afoot. The Michigan Supreme Court is rejecting efforts to keep Donald Trump off of the ballot in 2024. The attempt to exclude former President Trump from the ballot based on the insurrectionist ban in the U.S. Constitution has been denied by the key swing state's high court. This stands in contrast to the recent ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court, which removed Trump from its primary ballot due to his involvement in the January 6th Capitol riot. The divergent rulings heighten the significance of potential appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly as the nation approaches the commencement of the 2024 primaries. Unlike the situation in Colorado, the Michigan lawsuit was dismissed early in the legal process without reaching trial, and the decision was upheld by an intermediate appeals court.
The judge from the Michigan Court of Claims who initially handled the case asserted that state law provides no flexibility for election officials to scrutinize the eligibility of presidential primary candidates. Additionally, he argued that the case posed a political question that should not be resolved within the judicial system.
The latest Real Clear polling average from the state of Michigan has Trump leading Biden in the general election by almost 5 percentage points. The latest Real Clear polling average from the state of Michigan has Trump leading Biden in the general election by almost 5 percentage points. And the most recent Morning Consult Insider poll has Trump ahead in several key swing states.
Looking at the bird's eye view of the election, the Hill Decision Desk survey has Trump ahead in the national ballot by 2 percentage points. So, Trump doing very well, up 4 or 5 points in the very states that he needs to win the election in 2024. Signs for him are very good right now. I guess if you're Biden, you have to hope the economy is going to turn around and everybody forgets about Israel-Palestine for 5 seconds. Those are certainly things that could happen. Of course, the age issue is not going away. Indeed, it's just going to get worse as we see and hear more from Biden in the coming months. How would you be feeling if you were on Team Biden, Jessica?
I would be feeling bad, Robbie. I'd be feeling very bad. 2 percentage points is pretty significant across all of these polls. If I was on Team Biden, I would really just be ramping up the messaging around what the administration has accomplished, which isn't much, but there is significant stuff there about reducing inflation. They could talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, and they could point out that very many Republicans went to their home states, and these were members of Congress just bragging that the money allocated through the IRA, which many of them were vehemently against, is now being used for projects in their state. And isn't that so great? And aren't I a great representative who you should elect over and over and over again? It's kind of ridiculous how many Republicans have played both sides through the Biden presidency. When this is on the floor, they're saying government spending is terrible unless it's in my state and I can use it to jockey for more votes. I think that's just incredibly dishonest politics. But Biden has this kind of adversity to point this stuff out. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that it happens with the Democratic representatives as well. And he's such a partisan guy, and people really want someone who's a bit of an independent thinker, someone willing to call out what's going on in the party system. If I was on Team Biden, I would tell him to peacefully retire, because anyone on Team Biden is on Team Democrat. Those two things are one and the same. He's a partisan guy. And so have Biden peacefully retire and let someone from the next generation come forth, because really what we're going to see is the death of the Democratic Party if they don't realize the state of politics in the country.
Yeah, and you'd think it would occur to them, but of course they walked right into the same exact disaster in 2016. The Democratic Party did, ignoring the obvious flaws of Hillary Clinton, well-publicized flaws, saying, well, that doesn't matter. You shouldn't care about that. It was like they thought people shouldn't care about the emails and her history of not being a particularly well-liked political figure. They thought that shouldn't matter to people, but it did matter to people, and they just didn't care that it mattered to people. And that's how you got Trump in the first place. Trump obviously has a much more combative relationship with the Republican Party than Biden does with the Democratic Party. Trump, the Republican, at the most elite level, Republicans actually probably do, in fact, wish that Trump would magically disappear because they think they'd have better odds without him, but that's never going to happen. The base, the voters actually do want him. They want the opportunity to vote for him, despite the Colorado decision, which is now called into question by this decision out of Michigan. So split rulings, makes it even more likely that the Supreme Court is going to have to weigh in and adjudicate swiftly whether Donald Trump's name can appear on the ballot. That is, I would expect them to say that. It looks like a lot of, obviously there are some legal experts and many who wish Donald Trump, who think that because of the insurrection, a part of the 14th Amendment, that he can't be on the ballot. A lot of others, just even very anti-Trump people, disputing whether the insurrection language applies specifically to Trump's conduct. Even if you think Trump's conduct was really bad and you don't think he should be president again, does that preclude him from being on the ballot so that you can vote for, an inherently political question, a question of democracy? So Michigan, reaching a different conclusion, and thus I think setting us up for the Supreme Court to eventually rule.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court on Friday, the U.S. Supreme Court, not Michigan, they declined to immediately comment on Trump's immunity, whether or not he could be, barred from holding public office on 14th Amendment Section 3 grounds, which state, an insurrectionist cannot hold public office. And so I think it's more telling that they won't say anything immediately. You might be right, Robbie, that they were waiting for something like this to happen, for there to be split rulings among these two states, Colorado and Michigan. And in a state like Michigan, where Trump is steadily polling ahead, I can see many people who maybe don't really care that much about the intricacies of the American judicial system, and I can't really blame them. But if you're a Trump supporter in the state of Michigan, I can imagine this would sow some distrust. If you see the candidate that you want to vote for being taken off of the ballot, something that's decided by a panel of about 9 judges, in Colorado it was 7, and you're like, what happened to democracy? Why are 7 people deciding this? And so I really think that the Supreme Court declining to comment was probably a smart move until they have something, real to decide on before the court, which this split ruling could be that thing. But as many people stated, this prosecution of Donald Trump could actually make him more popular. Him being 2 points ahead, it's pretty shocking, actually, because Biden really lost it when he decided to be so pro-Israel at the face of many well-documented human rights violations, at the face of the entire international community, with over 90% of states represented in the General Assembly of the United Nations really supporting a ceasefire at a time when the U.S. was vetoing it. He's really alienating us in the global stage. And no matter what side you're on, that's not a really great thing for a president to do, no matter how you feel about Israel-Palestine. So I really think President Biden, by not delivering on his promises and really dropping the ball on Israel-Palestine relations, he's responsible for him dipping in the polls. I don't know if I credit, Donald Trump's prosecution for him rising in the polls. Definitely not going to help him in the state of Colorado if this stands.
I do think the Israel-Palestine issue is hurting Biden by turning off a lot of very vocal, very loud young people. Regardless of whether you think it's the right policy or not, it clearly is a dividing issue in the Democratic coalition right now, which means it's not good for Joe Biden. So I would agree with you on that. We'll be right back with more Rising in just a minute.